Hey there guys, so today I'm very excited to talk to you guys about this brand new system that I just got in from Beelink. This is a part of their EQ series, and this is a brand new system that they just came out with. And what I'm so excited about when it comes to this system is the fact that it comes with the new Intel Wildcat Lake processors. This one in particular has the Intel Core 3 304 processor. If you're not familiar with this specific chip, this is a 5-core processor that is 1 performance core, 4 efficiency cores. Now, Wildcat Lake is supposed to be the replacement to Twin Lake and to Alder Lake N. And this is a pretty massive leap because we finally introduced P cores into the mix, with 1 P core being given to this specific chip. Now, some of the downsides that this configuration also has is the fact that we are still only on single channel memory, but still this should come with a massive bump in performance in comparison to where we were at before, at least on the Intel entry level side of things. So I'm very excited to take a look at this. And here we have the system. It does seem to be a pretty sleek, very muted design. It is all plastic. You can see the I/O. Now, you might have noticed in the back of the box that it said, but one of these ports is a 10 gigabit port. The other one is a 2.5. So networking wise, this thing is kind of loaded, but there are 2 USB-A's in the back. We got 2 USB-C's in the back, which this right here, this is one of the things that really emphasizes to me that Beelink is actually a company that deals with a lot of customers, and they listen to what their customers are saying, because this right here is the most usable way of having USB Type-C. This right here is just smart. This is good design. This shows me that this is a company that actually has customers. They use their products, they give feedback, and they listen to that feedback. If we take a look at the sides, again, very sparse on the front where we have another USB-A, we have the headphone, and we have USB Type-C. So if you want USB 3 on here, you are going to have to use the USB Type-C ports, but I'm perfectly fine with that, honestly. With having the USB-Cs on the back, honestly, that changes the entire dynamic here, because for the systems where you only have the front USB-C, suddenly trying to use a dock is a pain because you're always going to have this cable coming out of the front. With this, that's not even a consideration. And not to mention, this right here is telling me that we have an internal power supply going on here. They went ahead and at least tried to color match things here. I say try because you can see this is definitely a different gray tone than this, and both of these are a different tone than this. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you can see that there was the effort there, but it came out a little sloppy. Like, Apple would not have done this. Apple would have probably assassinated somebody before they would let this come out to a consumer product, you know what I mean? Hell, they would have assassinated somebody if it meant that they would guarantee to match all of the tones together. So definitely an interesting decision there. Beelink is kind of giving almost like a faux premium vibes here. Obviously, it's a very low-end system. Of course, low-end doesn't mean cheap, right? Because that is something we are going to have to talk about, the pricing of a system like this, but that really is being dictated right now by the pricing of RAM and SSDs more than anything else. So no matter what the price of this is, I can't fault Beelink too much, because I mean, if a company like Dell and HP and Apple have to raise their prices, imagine what it's like to be one of these much smaller companies. You're pretty much just at the mercy of the market, even more so than these mega corporations that could at least have a little bit of leverage. But let's get the system set up, because I'm very, very curious to see what the Windows setup process is going to be like for a system like this. But as you can see by this cable that they included, that it does have an internal power supply. So that's actually really nice, because it's not bigger at all than any other systems, but it really does look really nice. Now, what I don't like is these little caps that they have for the screws down here. That's the only way to get it in there, but at least right now we don't have to open it. So I'm going to get this thing set up and use it, and then we'll maybe decide to open it up. Because the thing about opening it up is that you can't really upgrade this system anyway. It's single channel memory. Unless you already have an existing SSD or RAM that you want to throw in here, you're not opening this thing up. You're definitely not walking into a Micro Center and buying an SSD for this thing. But moving on to talking about the Windows setup process, it was a absolutely spectacular experience. The system is configured to use a local account, essentially, so you don't need the internet, you don't need to sign into a Microsoft account. It will just work out of the box. On top of that, we have the added benefit of the fact that this system is actually very fast at doing this. In terms of a low end, and I say low end in quotation marks just because the price point of this system right now is a little ridiculous, but where it falls in the product stack, this is a huge improvement, because the Intel N150, the N100, the N95, all of these processors that are very similar to each other, they were quad core processors that were all powerful E-cores from back in the Alder Lake era. So Windows would absolutely kick the ass of those little systems. But this time around, the overall IPC improvements that came with the improvements to the E-cores, as well as the inclusion of that P-core, the performance uplift here is pretty spectacular. In just 11 minutes, I was able to go through the entire Windows update process. And keep in mind, this is going to depend on how old the version of Windows that you are on is. But as you can see, a lot of these are very standard updates that pretty much any system is going to end up doing. And they all happen so quickly. I have not used an Intel system that was essentially this quick in a long time. Specifically because really the only systems that get set up quickly are anything that are i5s or and above. So the fact that this is a Core 3 and essentially the replacement to Twin Lake means that we are seeing a meaningful improvement in terms of the usability of a system like this on a day-to-day basis. And that's something that we've desperately needed on the low end. Now, if we move on to the actual performance of the CPU though, we can take a look at Cinebench R23 since this is the benchmark that I have the most data on, and you can see where this lands. Now, key highlights here, the fact that it beats out the N150. Obviously, this is what the replacement for it really is, so it makes sense it's going to end up beating it. But you're going to end up looking at the multi-core performance there and think, well, okay, this thing's not really all that impressive. It's falling behind even something like the Ryzen 3 5300U, but you need to understand what we're talking about here, really. That single core performance, a score of 1711, pretty much puts it in the range of Zen 4. Of course, this is the performance of the P-core here, but even the E-cores themselves are putting up some pretty good numbers, so the fact that it has 5 cores but it's performing at the level that it is pretty impressive, especially because what this is really going to translate to is just having an overall better experience when it comes to the day-to-day Windows tasks. And while that's part of the reason why the Windows update process finished so quickly, because that single core is extremely fast, so it's able to work through everything, the most demanding tasks essentially, far quicker than the single cores that would be in something like the 5300U, the 5500U. Even the 7735HS is falling behind in single core. That's the real game changer for Intel here. It's the fact that that P-core is so powerful that it's able to just chew through tasks while being supported by efficiency cores that have been upgraded to also have really great performance. Sure, they're not going to perform as high a level as what we're seeing with this Zen 4 equivalent essentially, but you don't really need the E-cores to be that fast. All it really needs to do is beat out something like the 5300U, the 5500U, and that is within the range that it is coming in at. So what we get here is a surprisingly balanced product that if we were in a functional world, the price point that this would be coming at would probably be between that 200 to 250, maybe some premium models being at the $300 price range. And at that price, this would be an interesting product, but that's unfortunately not the world that we live in right now. In day-to-day tasks, this system is essentially going to be an absolute dream. Doing basic web browsing where you have a bunch of tabs open, you got a video playing, you got, anything like that running in the background, this system is not going to get bogged down. This is actually something where the N150 could struggle at, especially if there was anything that Windows was doing in the background that you wouldn't want it to do. If it just suddenly decided to do a virus scan, that could end up causing issues, but you don't really see that here. I never dropped any frames at all in any video that I was trying to play. Everything was loading up perfectly fine on the browser, and this is going to cover pretty much the use case of 99% of people out there, because most of the things that people do on computers nowadays exist on browsers, right? So if you're using something like Office 365, if you're accessing Teams, if you're accessing Slack, anything like that, anything that really tends to be very productivity related tends to also just exist on a browser and on the cloud. So you really don't need anything high-end at all to do these tasks. What you really just need is something that is going to be able to feed the operating system and the web browser enough to not be overloaded. And that was something that those Twin Lake processors just weren't really able to do unless you went with the 8-core variants. But another part that was upgraded on this system was, of course, the inclusion of a single Xe3 core. This is an upgrade over what we were getting before with their just UHD graphics, but as you can see here, it's not exactly a great result. This is a very low TDP system, as you can see by the very little amount of power that we're using trying to run this, because the GPU itself also has a relatively low clock speed for what the hardware here is. So that's the limiting factor. It's a single core core GPU. So no matter what, even if we were to raise the TDP on this system, which I will show you the performance uplift that comes from raising the TDP, but you'll see that there's not really going to be much headroom here, because another downside is the fact that unfortunately it's still single channel memory. And well, because of that, you can see that Cyberpunk's built-in benchmark wasn't exactly running well, and this is already a lighter version than the game itself. Now moving on to War Thunder, a game that normally runs pretty well on low-end hardware. Here you can see that we're struggling even with the minimum graphics settings. The biggest issue is the fact that if you look at those frame time charts, we are getting these consistent spikes all the time. And again, the GPU is reaching its maximum clock speed. The single GPU core is fully loaded. So the limiting factor here is, of course, that GPU, and there's not really much we can do because it's already reaching its maximum clock speed. Even if we were to feed more power to this thing, that GPU is not really going to see that much of a performance uplift at all. Now, I couldn't not test Counter-Strike 2 since, again, it's the most popular game on Steam, but the performance here is abysmal. The 1% lows are disastrous, the average is awful, the frame times are absolutely awful. This is just not gaming hardware at all. There are certain games that you're going to be able to play on here. A lot of 2D titles will run well, even lower end 3D titles will run, but even things like this aren't going to do great. So unless you're going to be doing kind of like a retro build, I would really recommend not trying to game on this. There's just better alternatives for that out there. That said, in the modern world, pretty much anything is a gaming PC because there are all kinds of games out there that you can play. Something like this is going to run perfectly fine. There are a lot of browser games out there that are extremely popular that you'll be able to play perfectly fine on here. If you're looking to play any games that are essentially from the 90s and early 2000s, they're also going to run on here. And look, I don't care what you have to say, somebody that can play Quake 3 is a gamer. I don't really care on what kind of hardware they're playing it on. If you're playing those kinds of games, how are you not a gamer? So this is a gaming computer in the sense that pretty much anything that can load any game ever made is a gaming computer, but that's just not the mindset that you should be on when buying this. You're buying this to use it for other tasks. If gaming is your main focus, then there is just better hardware to buy for the money, and we do need to talk about the price of it. But before we get into the price, we do need to still talk about one extra aspect of this system. I did go into the BIOS and try to see what I could modify on there, and you can adjust the TDP of the system. It has a stock TDP of 15 watts, and that's why it's a very efficient, very quiet system. But I did see that it has a short-term boost of 35 watts, and I figured, okay, I'm just going to lock the thing to 35 watts at all times so that we can see what the performance boost we can get out of this thing would be. And well, I was kind of shocked by the level of performance that we were able to get out of this thing, because by raising the TDP up to 35 watts in Cinebench R23, we see a pretty noticeable uplift in both the single core and multi-core performance, where now not only are we beating out the 5300U when it comes to multi-core performance, but this is chart-topping single core performance here. It beats out any of the Zen 4 processors that I have here. We're talking about Zen 5 territory of single core performance. This is a crazy big uplift because of the fact that this is boosting the performance of the system in a pretty meaningful way while raising the TDP only 20 watts here. Though an uplift like this is only really going to be seen on the CPU side of things because the CPU itself has just multiple cores to work with, so it can be in those limited situations. Understand that the GPU, while it might see a bit of an uplift, it's not going to make a meaningful difference because we are talking about just a single core GPU. You can see here in Counter-Strike 2, running it with the increased TDP, it doesn't really do much at all to improve the performance. There was a uplift in both the FPS average and the 1% lows, but it wasn't a super large uplift, and it's not really enough to salvage anything here. And you'll see that the power usage here is not really going up at all, and it's just because, again, we're limited by a single GPU core with a clock speed of 2.3 gigahertz. That's not exactly super fast by today's standards, so it's not like one of those scenarios where you really got to crank the juice to try to squeeze out an extra 500 megahertz. This is well within the efficiency curve of this type of architecture, so you don't need more than the wattage that you're seeing right now, and that is going to mean that you're just limited in terms of gaming performance no matter what. I mean, we can't get past that physical limitation of just a single GPU core. Now, I really don't recommend that you run the system at that higher TDP. Honestly, enjoy the fact that it's so efficient at the 15 watt TDP. But as you can see, the system is actually still set up here because I was going to go down the route of installing Linux on here as, you know, an added part of this video, but I have been enjoying messing around with this thing so much that I kind of want to do a dedicated Linux thing for it. But look, to say that this is the most excited that I've been for an Intel product in a long time is kind of an understatement, right? It's just unfortunate that it's coming out at such a bad time because, you know, I've been alluding to it throughout the entire video. You might have even looked it up by now. This system right now on Amazon is selling for about $450. At that price point, this is devastatingly bad levels of performance. While it's incredible what it can do in terms of efficiency, at the price point that it's coming in at, it just doesn't really compete well unless you're going for something that's very, very efficient and you need the 10 gigabit and you need the 2.5 gigabit. If we were in the glorious timeline where this was just replacing the N150 and we were finally getting this in the $250 to $300 price range, I think that this was revolutionary. Even if they wanted to charge a $350 premium for having that 10 gigabit on there, that would make way more sense than the price that this is at right now, because at $450, it's not competing against the 5300U or the 5500U or the 7430U. It's competing with the 7735HS, and while yes, it beats it out in single core performance, it has only one single core that is at that maxed out speed. The rest are going to be at a slower speed. That's fine for day-to-day tasks. But unless you need that 10 gigabit, you can pretty much pick up a system that has a 7735HS for $100 less than this. And you can see where it lands on the charts, and we're not even comparing the iGPU. Not to mention, this thing is still limited by having single channel memory. But of course, because it needs to have DDR5 memory, because it needs to have a SSD in there, the system itself is coming in at a ridiculous price. But still, because it's a new product, it kind of just has to come in with these ridiculous prices already kind of baked in, as opposed to already existing inventory that's able to at least take advantage of the fact that it's been around long enough that prices have kind of come down. Even though a system like the FireBat A6 is about $100 more expensive than what you could find it at last year, it's still a far more reasonable price than what this is going for right now, even if they fulfill two different categories on the market. Problem is that this thing is bringing a real premium with it that I think a lot of people out there are just not really going to be able to stomach. Still, I'm very excited to keep messing around with the system because I think that this is laying down a great foundation for a future, one where this RAM apocalypse is finally over, and I do suspect at some point it's going to end. There might be a new normal for prices for a good while, but I suspect that eventually we will see prices come down, and what this is really laying down a foundation for is the fact that Intel low-end systems are finally really usable with Windows again. And if we're getting that much usability in Windows right now, I'm very excited to take a look at Linux. So stay tuned for that. Be sure to be subscribed. We are definitely going to keep taking a look at the system because I'm so excited. I get way more excited by the release of low-end processors than I do for anything that's essentially brand new and high-end, because I'm never going to touch that stuff anyway, and chances are you aren't either. But something like this, a chip like this, sure, right now you might not want to pay the $450, but you know, 3-4 years from now when you can find something like this for $100, that just might be interesting to you.